The 2024 blowout is on now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. All remaining 2024 vehicles are priced at cost. Save thousands on a 2024 Nissan Armada, perfect for your family. Or check out the rugged 2024 Nissan Pathfinder and Nissan Frontier while they last. Plus, take advantage of half-price oil changes all month long and save 20% on brakes and rotors, including parts and labor, but only until April 30th. At the new Lloydminster Nissan, we won't sell you a car, we'll help you buy one.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Hey, welcome inside the new Lloydminster Nissan, home of half-price oil change all April. Call 780-875-3335 and book your oil change today. Plus, get 20% off on brakes. That includes parts and labor. Plus, the new Lloydminster Nissan is blowing out the remaining 2024 vehicles at cost. So stop in and check out some Pathfinders and some Frontiers today. We have a lot of really nice-looking vehicles that somebody's going to drive away very, very happy in today. And if you're booking that oil change, book it up because we're filling up fast for those oil changes once again at half price. Well, Heine Westergaard is here with details on this summer's Vermilion River Lawnmower races, June 21st in Vermilion at the Vermilion Ag Grounds. And also joining us today is Richard Starke, who is going to tell us about his experience as a vet at the Yukon Quest dog sled race in February, the most difficult dog sled race in the world. Superior Water specializes in nothing but water, and with over 22 years in the business, they're proud and confident that their water and service is superior. For iron filters, water softeners, reverse osmosis distillers, chlorine removal, and H2S odor removal, you can give Superior Water a call today at 780-875-6636 or stop in and see them on their 57th Avenue location right beside Sheepskin Loft, and stay hydrated with pure, clean water. I drink Superior Water because I like the taste, and after all, it is superior water. I'll get your nominations in today for Cupcakes for Caregivers, proudly brought to you by Sobeys in Lloydminster and the Lloydminster and District United Way. We're actually heading out this afternoon to once again deliver another dozen signature cupcakes to one deserving caregiver. And if you would like to nominate a caregiver, we just encourage you not to hesitate. Just nominate them by sending an email to livewithkurtprice@gmail.com. All caregivers are eligible, and we keep all the nominations, so keep those nominations coming in for your special caregiver today. We're excited to team up with Kenny Mac and KM Artisan Hot Sauce for our KM and KP Spring Sizzler contest. This is your chance to win a brand new Canadian-made barbecue and KM Artisan Hot Sauce for a year, which true Kenny Mac style is 24 bottles of hot sauce. I don't know who goes through that much hot sauce other than Kenny, but maybe you'll have enough to give it to your neighbors. Plus, you'll also get some GSP spice and rub as well. And we just remind you to shop local. And when you pick up a bottle of KM Artisan Hot Sauce, you're definitely supporting local. So like, share, comment on the Facebook post for your chance to win that barbecue and KM Artisan Hot Sauce for a year. The Lloydminster Museum and Archives are hosting a dip dyeing Easter egg and Easter Pasanki this Saturday from 10 to 4:30. Kids ages 3 to 8 can just take part in a dip and decorate hard-boiled eggs. And adults and the older kids, well, they can use some unique tools and create their own Pasanka eggs. And you're asked to register at lloydminster.ca. And your $5 fee also includes admission to all of the galleries there at the museum. Drop-ins are welcome, provided there's still space, so you might want to guarantee your spot by registering again at lloydminster.ca. And that's brought to you by Lloydminster and District Co-op. The future of women's hockey is coming to Lloydminster for the 2025 SO Cup. It's practically here. It's next week, April 20th to 26th. Watch the host Lloydminster Steelers face off against 5 regional champions from across Canada at the Centennial Civic Centre. Full event ticket packages are on sale now. They start at just $90. Visit hockeycanada.ca/SO Cup and get your tickets. Be there when Canada's women's U18 club champions are crowned. Umbrella Marketing and Design is proud to present Elevate 2025, May 10th, a day designed for young women It's for ages 12 to 18 and their moms and their mother figures to develop life skills and keep them safe. Guest speakers include local individuals presenting empowerment sessions on everything from your physical health to protecting these young girls on the internet. And the keynote speaker is Jess Datu. You may recognize that name. She's spoken here at some women's events before, and this time we'll be speaking to the younger ladies about the hard work and determination that she had when she left home at 15 and built her Just For You day spa empire. For tickets, which include lunch, go to umbrella-inc.ca, and New Lloyd Mr. Nissan is proud to be one of the sponsors for that event. And tonight is the Federal Election Forum presented by the Lloydminster Chamber of Commerce. You can watch in person or online with the Saskatchewan Forum starting at 5:30 and running till 7 o'clock in the Prairie Room at the Lloydminster Exhibition. That will be followed by the Alberta All Candidates Forum from 7:30 to 9 o'clock in the same location. And you can view both on YouTube, and I'm sure they will stay up there for a few days if you can't watch tonight at 5:30. And don't forget, you can also submit your questions. Faye and I were talking when I first came in. We both submitted the same question, so we found that interesting. They're committed, certified, reliable, and they will help you get your life back. BioClean Disaster Services, 1-833-246-8326. Taking care of your property and your belongings, of course, that's important. That is what you expect a restoration company to do. But what BioClean Disaster Services does is they go above and beyond, and they take care of your family. That's their priority, taking care of you and your family and helping you get your life back. Because believe me, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss those everyday mundane things that you took for granted. 1-833-246-8326 for BioClean Disaster Services, Lloydminster's largest restoration company. Of course, they're Lloydminster's local restoration company as well. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk lawnmower racing with Heine here. Heine Westergaard is here, and I'll tell you, we've been talking a little bit about this, and you're not going to want to miss this interview. It's coming up next.
At CK McKean Roofing, they understand what it took to put that roof over your head for your family. With over 20 years of experience under their belt, they strive to show you that with their workmanship and their integrity. Not all roofing companies are created equal, and that's why CK McKean Roofing encourages you to focus on your most important investments, your home and your family. CK McKean Roofing. Roofers do it on top.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back. You help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Welcome back to the new Lloydminster Nissan. Pleased to be joined by Heine Westergaard, and I believe I called him Heine at first, so I apologize.
That's all good.
So I'll answer almost anything, but it is really Heine. So glad you're here. Thanks for being here.
Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity to come in and share a little bit of our story and what we've been working on for the past couple of years and some of the successes that we've seen with the lawnmower racing and just the general development of the sport within the region. So, and when I talk about region, I talk based on Ag Society. So I'm talking about like a Region 4, which is we've got from Cold Lake, Bonnyville, Lac La Biche. We get into Two Hills, Vegreville, Wainwright. So anybody that's within this Lloydminster, Vermilion area. So there's been some pretty cool developments over the past couple years when it comes to lawnmower racing. Cherry Grove has been running events for the past 8 years, and they're kind of the ones that we've watched. We've been to a few races up there and thought it was pretty cool, and we should do something about it. And in 23, we finally stepped up and we did an improv. We got 400 feet of survey tape and a bundle of survey stakes, and we went and pounded it into the grass inside the infield of the chuck wagon track at the Vermilion Ag Grounds. It was pretty impromptu, and the ground was pretty rough, but we managed to take and do it. We had 13 guys show up with a hodgepodge of different machines, and we did our best to take and make it through. That was our proof of concept. And then in May of 2024, we started construction. And in the course of a month and a little bit, we had put together a track. Our oval on the outside is 980 feet. We have a 1,200-foot inside road track, so we take and divide up for classes. And we have a 680-foot track for our stock tractors, just because they're a little bit slower machine, and they don't need quite as long a track to take and get done what they're going to do. So 7 kilometers an hour versus 57 versus 107, a bit of a different requirement for the machines. So, but yeah, it's been a pretty big learning curve for us to take and get involved in doing that.
So that trip to Cherry Grove, was that the first you'd heard of?
On
lawnmower racing?
I've been following a little bit on YouTube, so you see all the races and stuff that the guys do down in the U.S. and even out in eastern Canada. So you look out into PEI, Nova Scotia, Quebec. The guys in Quebec are crazy when it comes to lawnmower racing. Like, they're just wild, some of the machines that they've put together, and the tracks and circuits. And then you look at the stuff in the UK. UK and Australia, they have quite a group over there that take and do the lawnmower racing, and it's neat to take and see the differences. They do endurance races, and they take and do track races and things like that. So we've adopted into building the track, and there is some talk that down the road we'd sure like to do an endurance race, but most guys are like, I can't sit on my lawnmower for 6 hours. So we'll see as things develop, but for the time being, we've made some changes over the course of this past year together with Chris Grant from the Alberta Lawnmower Racing Association. So we started in December with a collective group of 8 individuals from different communities, and what we did was we tried to standardize the equipment and the rules so that we have something set to take and go by, so that if a guy builds a lawnmower and he's going to take and race in Vermilion, he can go to Cherry Grove, he can go to Fort Saskatchewan, he can go to Linden, Alberta, he can go to Three Hills, he can go to Two Hills, or any of the other communities that are looking at doing the lawnmower racing or that are currently doing lawnmower racing. So it just makes it easier for the junior builder or the backyard builder to step into something where that, okay, so I want to get into a super stock class, what can I take and do? It's a common question, what do you do for equipment?
Yeah.
And
that was my next question.
Yeah, so a $50 lawnmower that runs or that doesn't run and you can make it run, take the blades off, drop the mower deck, you are entered in stock class. And then it goes up from there. So you can do pulley swaps, get you into super stock, and then you can do other modifications into your frame design and steering as you get up into the higher classes. So, and all things to take and do with racing and longevity of the sport, we've really pushed on our junior side. So what we're doing is we're getting the Power Wheels kids involved. Ages 3 to 6 can race their Power Wheels. It is the most incredible fun thing to take and watch. You get these little kids, they get their helmets, and everybody's a Mario Andretti when you get behind the wheel and you're on a track. It's like they're 3 years old and they get that look in their eye where I'm going to take you out. Yeah. I'm taking the trophy. So it's that kind of fun that gets in there, and the parents are there and watching, and grandparents. But from 3 to 6 they do the Power Wheels, and then from 7 to 12 they do the junior stock. And what we did for the junior stock is just so that we don't have a 40-year-old with an ego or an attitude that comes out and is going to take and race against a 7-year-old. We tried to take and keep it where we've got the kids, so really promote that kids event, and then there's a few other fun things we take and do with the kids when they're out there racing. So that does our junior stock, and then we go into a stock, which is anybody that's got a lawnmower, take the blades off, bring it in, you can run your stock lawnmower. And then we get into the super stock. Now we've done a few modifications to it. We've done pulley swaps generally. And then we've done a little bit of upgraded steering. And then we get into our Pro Stock, which is we've dropped the chassis down to 4 inches off the ground. We've done more modifications. We've got different rules for axles and transmissions and transaxles and things like that. And then you get into engine modifications as well. And then we have an Outlaw class, which is anything short of a car engine you can ram into a lawnmower looking frame will work. So last year we had a couple guys from town here. They took and put together a mower. It had a 670cc Rotax snowmobile engine. It moved pretty good. And then we have one of the fellows in Vermilion. Well, he's got a 600cc Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle, 4-cylinder motorcycle engine in his. It moves really good. And one day when he hooks up, he'll probably beat us all in a race. But until then, he just keeps spinning his tires and makes it look real good and entertaining for us. So. But yeah, and then other things, so you get into the vertical shaft, Bridges and Stratton, 740 cc's, and those ones there still running the Outlaws, and they'll do billet flywheels and rods and different engine modifications. So it can get fairly expensive, but it's also fairly inexpensive to get into it. You decide where you want to be at with it.
So how do you get in, like let's say I've got an old lawnmower sitting out back, and I'm gonna soup it up. I'm gonna fix it up, like you say. Add a pulley or two.
Yeah.
What do I got to do to get in your race? Am I allowed to race, or do I have to
So
you have to certify the lawnmower safe? How do you?
So we take and do pre-inspection prior to racing. So we come in. So if you follow the guidelines that are on our Facebook page and on the Vermilion Ag Society website, that'll give you a pretty good base. And if you have any questions, my phone number is on the site. And then we also have a couple other mechanics that are there to take and help guys for getting things figured out. So basically, put the mower together based on the guidelines of what's set out there. And then when you come into race day, you'll be able to take and pre-register on the Ag Society website or through the Vermilion River Lawnmower Racing page on Facebook. And then get it there. We'll do the inspection. You'll take and do a time trial. And then you're set to take and race. And once you take and get the sticker, so we put a sticker on the hood, once you've got that, when you come back for other events, then we just do a verification. Did you change anything since your last race? And if you say no, we're going to take your word for it. But if you happen to take and pass everybody and win by a large margin, there's a pretty good chance we're going to look into the inspection side.
Right.
So you do have to have good brakes and things like that. So there has to be a safety. Everybody has to have a tethered kill switch, with the exception of the stock classes, because they have the kill switch under the seat. But everybody else is tethered, so if you do come off the machine, that it kills it instantly.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's, safety is a big part of it. You've got to wear your helmets. We've got safety gear that you have to take and have on. You want to be covered because there is a risk for injury. So last year we did have some injuries. I actually, in my first race, ended up rolling. I did a barrel roll on my mower. It was quite spectacular for the video that's out there. I think it was anyway. And then, yeah, so that put me out of the race season for a little bit, but that's okay. I didn't mind being pit boss, so it was pretty good. And then in the fall, we had one fella took and rolled his, and he ended up with a couple broken ribs. So there is potential for incident. But in the outlaw classes, they can also get up to 100 plus kilometers an hour on the track.
There's danger in everything.
There's danger in everything, but it's the adrenaline, it's the fun. And the other part, too, is that is really neat is the camaraderie in the pits. Somebody has something that's broken, well, somebody's got a part laying in the box of the truck, or we're going to take and run down to the hardware store and we'll find something to take and get it fixed. So the key thing is to really push that family values when it comes to working together. The community, we're sharing parts and pieces, and we're helping each other out to take and solve problems to get the next person out. And really big on youth, to take and get youth involved. When I say like a backyard builder, what I'm picturing is a father and son, or father and daughter, or mother and kids, whatever, that want to take and do this. They've got a mower in the back. You don't need a bunch of fancy equipment to take and swap pulleys. You need a couple very basic tools and to get down to the store and find the right pulleys. And that's something where that you look, there's enough charts and things online, and we have a few recommendations for people just starting out to take and do it. And you can get a $50 lawnmower, and you can put about $50 worth of parts into it, and you can go from 7 kilometers an hour to 37 kilometers an hour. So there's a pretty good gap range in there. So very affordable racing. You just got to get it to there, and then have your safety gear, and you can take and run it around. So
how long, for anybody who hasn't seen a race, how long is a typical race?
So for the stock classes we're running, they run 3 laps,
Okay.
and it runs somewhere around 5 to 7 minutes. When we get into the higher classes, we're looking between 5 and 8, and then for the Outlaws are 10 laps. So the Outlaws running 8 to 10 laps are about 1 minute and 40 seconds.
So you mentioned the pit.
Yeah.
Like you have to, is there a rule you have to make a pit stop for safety
No,
reasons? Or?
so that's just where everybody's gathered. So that's a
Oh,
gathering
okay.
area, and then they can go in there. And once you register your machine, you can't take it back to your trailer. If you're going to do any fixing, you take and roll off to the side in our pit area, and then you take and do your fixing. Keep your machine in there and your gear and stuff in there, and then you can take and roll out. That way, it's easier for us to take and coordinate everybody going out, so that we can take and get them onto the track in an orderly fashion.
So you mentioned there was 13 that first year in 2023. What are you up
Yes.
to now?
So we averaged 38. So
Oh.
yeah, so that's kind of
Wow. That's a lot of lawnmowers.
And I suspect this year we're going to be closer to 50. So per,
That's
per
awesome.
event. So the most popular class is our super stock, because that takes that stock mower and it gets us from that 7 to 37. So we say that if you want to be competitive in super stock with your pulley swaps, you should be running somewhere between 35 and 45 kilometers an hour. And then when you get into the pro stock, then you're going to basically be 45 to 65, 70 kilometers an hour from there. And then outlaw, it's whatever you can take and get to the ground.
Okay.
So.
Tell us about what's happening on June 21st.
So June 21st, we've got, it's our kickoff event. And what that'll be is we're going to take and have a day of races. So we're going to be running 6 heats that day. And it's also tied in with our Gears and Cheers car show at the Vermilion Ag Society. So the car show stuff moves in at 10 o'clock, and that's when the gates are basically coming. They're going to be open for the lawnmower guys coming in too. Registration opens at 10 for the car show and for the lawnmower racing. We start safety inspections, and then they'll be led onto the track to do time trials, and then we'll get all that stuff documented and set. We're looking to start racing about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll take and run through the afternoon. We're going to have a beer garden set up. We're going to take and have food vendors on site, so it's going to be a pretty good day, a really good event for us.
That's the first of 3.
That's the first of 3. So now we take and lean into the annual fair, so the Vermilion Fair, amazing event for 3 days. If you ever had a chance to get there, if not, you should get there because it's pretty cool. And so we're racing there on the 25th and 26th, so that's the Friday, Saturday. And what that does is it gives our further away racers a chance to take and get down, so that they got, last year we had guys come in from Kelowna. They had heard word of the Vermilion track and that it was fast, and they wanted to try it out. So they came down for the fair, and they are coming back this year, and they're bringing friends. Last year they took our money, but we're hoping to keep it this time. So a little friendly competition there, and so we get in through the fair. So the 2 days of racing there, the Friday, Saturday, and that'll be registration opens at 10 o'clock in the morning. Races we're looking to take and start at noon. We're in a very tight timeline for that event because there's so much stuff going on, and we have to be out of the infield by 3:30 in the afternoon because they're prepping the track for the chariots to take and run, and then the wagons after that.
Okay.
So, and then once we get through the fair, then we have a little bit of a break. Cherry Grove, they're running their event. That'll be towards the end of August. Two Hills is running one. I believe theirs is August 16th. Two Hills is going to have their event. We're hoping to go up and then to take and pollute their grounds as well with some Vermilion mowers and ideally take their money, but we'll see how it works out. And then Cherry Grove, theirs is on the weekend of August 23rd. So that'll be the same thing. We're going to go up and then take and challenge the guys up there to some races. And then we get into our September event, which is very unique. We did that last year, and we race under the lights. So we set up light plants all around our track. And same thing, we've got a beer gardens tent set up. We've got food vendors, and there will be racing under the lights. So last year we started about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we took and ran through till 10 o'clock that night. And it was amazing to take and see. The guys said it was a neat experience to take and do under the lights. Some guys liked it, some didn't. But I think knowing what we need to take and do as racers, the machines are going to be dolled up quite a bit better. There'll be a lot of underglow and there'll be headlights and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, so it's going to get danced up pretty good. So
now I understand you guys are looking for sponsorships too.
We are looking for sponsorships, and we're looking for volunteers. So on April 29th, we have an open house at the Vermilion Ag Society office at the boardroom. And what that's going to be is it's kind of our open invitation for people to come in that want to get involved or they want to get more information on lawnmower racing. It's at 7 p.m. at the Ag office boardroom in Vermilion on the grounds. So, yeah, and sponsorships, they're always looking for ways to take and get in. And we're pretty flexible when it comes in. We're looking for donations in kind. We're looking for people to take and come in and spend some time with us. And if they're looking to take and do some major sponsorships, we do have a package where that we're looking for track sponsor, we're looking for announcer booth sponsor, and then pit lane and pit area, and then a return lane sponsorships. So, and we've got a lot of development in the work for this year. We're adding a bunch of safety rails to our track just because of the speed and things like that. So we've got about $20,000 worth of work we have to take and do around our track to take and get everything so that it kind of brings it up that extra level of safety for the racers as well as for the spectators.
Did you ever think that it would get this big?
Of course I did.
Where you're putting in railing and everything?
It was the long-term plan was to take and do something that was going to be fairly permanent. It's going to take and stand the test of time and really add value to the facilities that we have. We have amazing facilities in Vermilion at the ag grounds between our riding arenas, and we've got our sand rings and different things like that, our barns. And now to take and add something like this, there's a standard that's been set for many, many years with past executives and the Ag Society as a whole. Have a good spot to take and go, have a safe spot to take and go, and you're going to take and have longevity of events. We've added in, last year we started doing rodeos on the grounds again. So there's a high school rodeo and there's college rodeos, and then they're running jackpots pretty much 4 nights a week for barrels and for roping and things like that in Vermilion. So it's a very active place, and we thought by adding this to the track and building it properly, that it's just going to take and be another staple event that we can take and have within the community. And that's what it is. The Ag Society is about building the community, and it's about putting things out there for people to come and enjoy. So we got people traveling from Strathmore, Calgary, Kelowna. It's quite an area. And then we've got, of course, our Coal Lakes, our Bonnyvilles, our Lloydminsters, Wainwrights, Manvilles, all the communities within. It's tremendous, the outreach that we have for this type of event.
So you mentioned Kelowna came and took your money.
They did.
How much money can you make doing this lawnmower racing? What are the prizes like?
Well, it's a little bit variant on what our sponsorships are, because we do have class sponsors. So ideally we like to take and see that we'll pay out, so you get a trophy and $150.
The trophy's what you want.
It's bragging rights.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that stings more than having somebody not just to take your money, but to take that first place trophy and then to put it somewhere else and brag about it.
Yeah.
So we want to take and do that, and we have a lot of fun with it, and it's all in good fun, and there's a smile on everybody's face. There's no sour grapes about anything, and we just look forward to seeing these guys again, because and same thing, they've invited us out to their events, and our plan is this summer that if we can muster it, we're going to take and load a trailer up, and we're going to head out to one of the race events out there either this summer or this fall.
Take their money and bring it back here.
Well, we sure like to try, but boy, those guys are fast. They've been doing it for a lot of years. Yeah.
They have a little bit more leeway when it comes to, time to practice.
Yeah, the family that came out, they very mechanically inclined, and they've got some pretty tremendous stuff for what they're doing, and they've been doing it for 15 years. So when we started looking at what we were doing at Vermilion, I mean, we're year 3, I guess. So legitimately, it would be our third kick of the can, and most of the builds we have, they're the guys that have been around Vermilion that have raced, have gone to Cherry Grove and raced. So they've got more experience on that, but it's still that the rest of us are still learning, and we're making our mistakes and trying to take and improve builds and trying to take and do it on a budget as well. So because that's the other thing that's important, is that we don't want to get carried away, and we want to take and keep it fun and try to keep an even playing field for everybody out there. And it's not just about horsepower, it's about driver ability and learning things too. So, but the big thing is families, fun, and just have that camaraderie and that fellowship and community.
Thank you, Heine. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That is awesome. I did not realize that you guys were growing to where you're improving the track. You're getting more and more, like, it's getting serious now. Like, it's gone from just being fun, I think, to bragging rights. Like,
well, we're trying.
And not only bragging rights within, like, the lawnmowers, but within the, hey, come see our track in Vermilion. We're really doing this right.
Yeah, come down and check it out. It's and keep an eye on our Facebook page of Vermilion River Lawnmower Racing, because there's going to be posts up that. And when we start to take and do it, so new for this year we want to do as well, is every 2 weeks we want to do a test and tune on like a Friday evening or a Sunday afternoon, where if you've got something that you want to take and try out, you've been working on it, come down, We're going to have it where you put $5 in a pot, and then that just covers kind of a grooming fee. And run your machine, and we'll make sure it's safe. We'll be there. We can take a look it over and see if you've got any questions. And then maybe we can offer a pointer here or there, not to take and give an unfair advantage, but, we'll take and do what we can to take and help out. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
thank you.
So we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Richard Starke about his experience of the Yukon this past February.
How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
It's more than just taxes at L&A CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at L&A CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. L&A CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster.
The 2024 blowout is on now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. All remaining 2024 vehicles are priced at cost. Save thousands on a 2024 Nissan Armada, perfect for your family. Or check out the rugged 2024 Nissan Pathfinder and Nissan Frontier while they last. Plus, take advantage of half-price oil changes all month long and save 20% on brakes and rotors, including parts and labor. But only until April 30th. At the new Lloydminster Nissan, we won't sell you a car, we'll help you buy one.
At CK McKean Roofing, they understand what it took to put that roof over your head for your family. With over 20 years of experience under their belt, they strive to show you that with their workmanship and their integrity. Not all roofing companies are created equal, and that's why CK McKean Roofing encourages you to focus on your most important investments, your home and your family. CK McKean Roofing. Roofers do it on top.
The brand new community of Wellings Lloydminster lives life to the fullest. At Wellings, their mission is to enable connection, build community, and enrich the lives of their 55-plus members. Discover a new way of living and retirement and experience more freedom with every choice you make. At Wellings of Lloydminster, independence speaks for itself. And the social opportunities outside your doors are endless as well. Visit Wellings of Lloydminster at 3211 72nd Avenue on the Alberta side and discover more at wellingsoflloydminster.com. Well, I'm excited to have Richard Starke joining us now. He is, a local veterinarian. He's also done some stuff with tourism with the Alberta government, which makes this conversation perfect because Richard kind of combined both those, I would imagine, his tourism and his veterinary experience to take his talents up to the Yukon Quest dog sled race, which was in February?
February, yeah.
Early February?
Yeah, February 2nd was the start of the race, and we were there for basically the first full week of February.
Okay, so everybody talks about the Iditarod.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this race, because when you said you were coming,
right,
and you had talked to me a little bit before Christmas about it
yes,
as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So done a little bit of research on it. This race is actually a harder race.
Well, it was designed in that way. So the history of the two races, the Iditarod has been going since the early 70s, since 1972. And the Yukon Quest has been going since the early 80s. It got started about 10 years later. And the gentleman that sort of thought of the Yukon Quest, their design for the Yukon Quest was they wanted to make a race that was for purists. They said it was the race so tough that only purists would enter. So they set it up specifically such that there would be fewer checkpoints. The dogs could not be subbed in and out of the dog teams, which is something that is allowed at the Iditarod. And that, for example, sleds could not be subbed out. If you had something happen to your sled in the Yukon Quest, you just have to fix it or drop out. Whereas in the Iditarod, you can swap your sled out. Now, things have changed a little bit because the Iditarod remains a very long race. And in fact, it was just finished here. It runs in March. So the weather's a little better in March than it is in February, but it runs in March, and the Iditarod actually this year was over 1,100 miles. It was the longest Iditarod ever.
Okay.
The Yukon Quest used to be a 1,000-mile, just over 1,000-mile race that went in alternate years from Whitehorse to Fairbanks, and then the next year would go from Fairbanks to Whitehorse.
There's a reason for that.
Well, the distance,
yeah,
and because it was a traditional sort of route and that sort of thing. And they did that for basically the first roughly 35 years of its existence. But with COVID and then with the border restrictions and some of the other things, they were unable to keep on doing it that way. And one of the other problems that they ran into is even running in February, some of the parts of the race route that they traditionally used, frozen rivers, that sort of thing, they couldn't use anymore. Some of the rivers aren't freezing anymore.
Wow.
We were up there in the first week in February. It was minus 35 the whole week. The Yukon River flowing through Whitehorse is not frozen. Like, it's open standing water. Well, you can't run dogs over that.
No.
And even Teslin Lake, which was where the start of this year's race was, I mean, where we were out on the lake, yeah, it was solid. But just on the other side of the lake, you could see open water. So obviously, this creates some real challenges for the race organizers. They have to have a route. They have to have a trail that's safe. And they have to have a trail that they know what the distance is, and they can communicate that to the mushers and all the rest of it. So Yukon Quest has had some challenges in recent years because of that. But their goal is to get it back to a situation where it'll be a race of about 750 miles from Whitehorse or somewhere in the Whitehorse area. Teslin's about an hour and a half out of Whitehorse, and goes all the way to Dawson City, because Dawson City, of course, is the other major sort of historic community in the Yukon.
Yep.
So that's kind of what has been happening. But, yes, there's a little bit of, rivalry, tension, whatever you want to call it, between the Iditarod and Yukon Quest. Certainly the Iditarod is a better known race, has much higher sponsorship and prize money. The winner of the Yukon Quest, the long distance Yukon Quest race, which was just over 400 miles, she won $12,000, okay? And the winner of the Iditarod won just over $50,000. So, I mean, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
But there are mushers, and there are teams that run both races. We had 3 teams that ran Yukon Quest that competed in the Iditarod a month later. And Michelle Phillips, who won the Yukon Quest this year, she finished 4th in the Iditarod. Millie Purcell, who finished 5th in the Yukon Quest, she finished 9th in the Iditarod. And then Connor McMahon was the other musher that participated in Yukon Quest. He finished 7th in Yukon Quest. And I don't know where he finished in the Iditarod. He was a little farther down, but he was an Iditarod rookie. It was his first chance at the Iditarod. So these races, and there are other dog sled races all over, sort of, there's ones in Minnesota, there's ones in northern Saskatchewan, ones in northern Manitoba, but the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod are kind of the 2 big North American races.
How did you get, what happened to get you, somebody said, hey, we need vets, What are you doing? You love dogs. I know you love dogs.
Yes.
You know, what, we got the perfect guy here for this?
Well, first of all, in both of these races, they are very, very clear that the welfare of the dogs is their number one priority. And I mean, very clearly, if you're going to have any kind of an athletic event involving animals, you have to have veterinarians there. And so, you know, when I was in practice, we vetted rodeos, we vetted the chuck wagon races. You know, we would be there, you know, in case there was some sort of accident or incident or an animal get hurt. You know, you have to have that. And the same is true for the dog sled races. And so the Yukon Quest has a team of 6 veterinarians that look after the dogs. We perform a full set of pre-race examinations on the dogs to make sure they're fit to race. And then we check them at various checkpoints along the way. Now, I got involved because I got invited by the gentleman who's actually the head veterinarian for the Yukon Quest, is Dr. Marcus Bart. Marcus is a veterinarian who actually was born and raised in what was East Germany, but he was then trained at a German university as a veterinarian. We met at a conference in Germany in 2001. We had a couple of German beverages.
Not you, Coach.
Oh yeah. And you know, we got to talking, and Marcus basically said, "It's always been my dream to come to Canada." And I said, "Well, call me up when you want to come." A couple of years later, I get an email. Marcus comes to Canada. I helped get him a job sort of at a clinic in Grand Prairie. A few years later, he opens his own clinic in Grand Prairie. But what I didn't know about Marcus at the time is he had a huge interest in dog sled racing, even going back to his time in Germany, because dog sled racing is a big thing in Germany too. Not so much that they do it there, but they're big fans of it.
Oh, okay.
And most of the dog sled racing that happens in Scandinavia, it happens in Scandinavia, like up in Finland and Norway, up in, you know, the northern parts of Europe. So Marcus was always really interested in dog sled racing, and the other thing that got him very interested is one of his clients and patients in Grand Prairie is a gentleman by the name of Aaron Peck. Aaron has run both the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod many, many times, and he got, you know, Marcus, "Hey, do you want to come and vet Yukon Quest?" Marcus said, "Yeah, sure." So Marcus has actually vetted both races. He's vetted Yukon Quest 6 or 7 times, and he's vetted the Iditarod at least a couple of times. And he invited me 2 years ago, and I wasn't able to go in 2024 because of a prior commitment, but 2025, had the calendar freed up, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." So it was by invitation. You apply your usual veterinary skills and abilities. I mean, sled dogs have some specific conditions you have to be aware of and you have to watch out for. But, you know, doing assessments on animals, doing physical examinations, determining what's wrong with them is, you know, that's just everyday veterinary medicine. And the other thing is the mushers know their dogs. A lot of the mushers raise the dogs from puppies. They breed as well. And so the puppies, in fact, the guy who just won the Iditarod, Jesse Holmes, his entire team he raised from puppies. His entire team, you know, and you know, that's incredible. So the relationship that the mushers have with their dogs, you know, in a lot of ways, Kurt, there's a parallel with chuck wagon racing. Okay, and I mean, I worked with a lot of chuck wagon racers over the years, you know, with Brian Labakin and late great Ray Mitzwing and you know, the Benz Millers up in Dewberry, and these guys know their horses, and they are absolutely devoted to the care and the welfare of their horses. The same is true for the mushers at the Iditarod, and you know, to be fair, you get the same detractors. You know, the same people saying, "Oh, this is cruel. Oh, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, these dogs, you know, this is not fair." Well, when they're at the start line of the Yukon Quest, these dogs want to go. Like, that's all they want to do. I sent you a video clip. That's the start line. And these dogs, even after they've run 50, 80, 100 miles, right? Try doing that sometime, you know, and they get there, it's minus 30, and you think the first thing they want to do when they stop at a checkpoint is curl up and go to sleep. No, as soon as the musher stops them, they're jumping up and down and barking and wanting to keep going. They love doing this.
That adrenaline is just...
It's what they're bred for.
How many dogs in a dog sled race?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So it varies from race to
'Cause
race.
you can't switch them out. in this
Well,
one,
no, and it's at the Yukon Quest. So the Yukon Quest had two different race distances this year. One was, they called it the YQ 450, but it was actually just over 400 miles total. And then the other one was a YQ 175, it was 175 miles. And the reason for the shorter distances is to give an opportunity for younger, less experienced mushers the opportunity to race at a lower, a distance that isn't as far, not as
Keep them
tested.
involved.
Absolutely. So the dog sled teams at the Yukon Quest for the longer distance were 12 dogs per team, and for the shorter distance was 10 dogs per team. At the Iditarod, they can have up to 16 dogs. Okay, and the one of the regulations at Yukon Quest is that when you cross the finish line, the musher has to have a minimum of 7 dogs still pulling on the sled. Okay, so you're allowed to drop dogs off the team if they get hurt, if they get sick, or if they're just not performing well. And in some cases, like some of the dogs that we work with the mushers at every checkpoint. First question is, how are your dogs? How's everything going? Do you have any dogs that you need us to look at? And the mushers, I was amazed. Fourth dog on the left side, he's just not pulling as well as he should be. Okay, so you go look at that dog and you determine, why that might be the case. And then you have a conversation with the musher whether he wants that dog dropped or whether he wants to try keeping going until the next checkpoint. And if the dog has difficulties on the trail, they can unhook them and put them in the sled and basically take them to the next checkpoint where they can then be dropped and they'll be looked after by handlers and other people while the musher continues up the trail with the rest of the dogs.
That happens?
Yeah, it does. It does. So statistically, of the teams that started the Yukon Quest, the two distances, 87% of the dogs that started finished. Which is pretty good. Really, that's just a little over 10% were dropped for various reasons. To give you some perspective, there was a human ultra marathon race going on in the Yukon at the same time. They had 40 people start. 6 finished. Okay, I don't blame them. We saw them airlifting them off of Quiet Lake in helicopters because of frostbite. I guess the entire emergency ward in Whitehorse Hospital was full of frostbite victims from this race.
Oh, wow.
Right. Well, it was minus 35 the whole time we were there. Yeah. But there was no wind, so it was actually pretty nice.
How did you stay warm? You're not moving around. You're not were you inside a tent? What were you?
Well, we had different sort of facilities and accommodations. When we were in Quiet Lake, we were in you go to a campground. I was Parks Minister too, by the way. Had to get that in there. So, a standard cookhouse, right? With a cook stove, couple of picnic tables, and the wide open windows, which they had kindly covered over with poly, which has an insulating value of -5. Okay. So that's where we slept the last 2 nights that we were doing checkups on frozen bales of straw. It wasn't real comfortable, but hey, the mushers got a lot less comfortable sleeping out on the trail. So what are you complaining about?
So they come in, you check them, then you drive to the next.
Or it's sort of a leapfrog sort of a thing. We'll send one team to the first checkpoint, and then another team. We divided up into 3 teams of 2 veterinarians.
Oh, okay.
So Quiet Lake was one of the first checkpoints. We actually, there's no road access, so you get flown in on a ski plane, a plane with skis, land on the lake. Very cool scenery, absolutely breathtaking scenery. Just Yukon is a beautiful part of the world. And land on the lake with the skis, and that's where you are. And the other teams, the other 2 pairings of veterinarians, we drove then the long way around from Whitehorse around through Carmacks and then across to Ross River, which is about a 4.5-hour drive. And to get there before the mushers arrived, because Ross River was the next checkpoint.
Had you ever been up there before?
You're going to laugh at this. In 2013, I attended a tourism ministers conference in Whitehorse. Maxime Bernier was the federal tourism minister at the time. And somewhere out there exists a video of Maxime Bernier and I and all the other tourism ministers doing a indigenous dance where we're supposed to act like ruffed grouse or grouse cocks trying to impress the hens. I did my best.
You have that
possible.
video. Email livewithkurtprice@gmail.com.
I'm pretty sure every copy of that email has been dutifully destroyed. but no, I had been up there before.
Yeah.
But we were only basically in Whitehorse. And one of the things I found out very quickly up in the Yukon is, Yukon has roughly 45,000 people living. So it's a little bigger than Lloydminster population-wise. 3/4 of those people live in Whitehorse, right? So one of the things we found as we got out to some of the other communities was that there's a little bit of resentment towards Whitehorse because, they sort of say, well, Whitehorse gets everything. Everything happens in Whitehorse.
There are Toronto.
Anyway, yeah, absolutely. And that's a natural thing. And yet, the communities that the race went through this time included 2 communities that the race has never been to. One was Teslin, which is a Tlingit community. And we had fantastic cooperation from the Tlingit Tribal Council. And then the other one was a Dene community, Ross River. Ross River is a very historic community because there's a suspension bridge that goes over the Pelly River at Ross River. And that suspension bridge was built as part of the Canal Road, which was built in the Second World War to potentially provide petroleum from Norman Wells in Northwest Territories to the west coast of North America in case the Japanese destroyed the petroleum supply coming up the west coast. Never had to be used. But there was huge investment in dollars in terms of building a pipeline, building a road. They built a refinery in Whitehorse, which was never commissioned, but they built this refinery in Whitehorse in case they had to refine Northwest Territories oil to provide the Western Canada and Western United States during World War II in case, So I'm not sure. I know, Kurt, you're a big country music guy. How much of Stan Rogers' music you're familiar with?
Not a lot of Stan Rogers.
Barrett's Privateers and Northwest Passage. Well, he actually wrote a song about the Yukon, about the Canal Road. And the Canal Road is actually the trail that most of the dog sled race occurred on this year. So it was pretty cool to be there where all these place names that Stan Rogers mentions in this song, Canal Road, we were all of them. We were at Teslin, we were at Johnson's Crossing, we were at Carmack's, we were at Haynes, we were at Carcross. When you hear the line, he hit the 4-wheel drive at Johnson's Crossing, now he's 38 miles up the Canal Road. That's where we were. We were 38 miles up the Canal Road, and it was very cool. It was a real cool experience.
How much work was it? How much fun was it?
For sure it was work. Like for example, when we were at Ross River, we had 7 teams arrive in the span of 90 minutes. So that's 84 dogs that needed to be checked, and the mushers, they had a required rest stop at Ross River. So they wanted to get these dogs fed and bedded down as quickly as possible because their 6-hour mandatory rest period could not start until they actually came inside the building and checked in. So they were moving. They wanted to get the dogs all checked out. So as soon as they arrived, the vet teams would, how are your dogs? Anybody needs to be checked. Do you want to drop any dogs? And then we do physical examinations on the entire team. So that's 84 dogs. 84 dogs, 4 veterinarians examining 84 dogs in the span of 90 minutes. Now, it's not always like that. Sometimes they come in more spaced out. But in that particular case, they were very close to each other. So that was, for sure work. And, I mean, it's at night. It's minus 35. It's dark. And for the most part, you're crawling around on your hands and knees looking at these dogs. There's no exam tables or fancy vet clinics. No, you're crawling around on the hands and knees. And, some of the dogs, after running that distance, aren't really appreciating the milk of human kindness. But I gotta say that the sled dogs that I worked with, the temperament overall was amazingly good. These dogs were fantastic. I got bit twice the whole week. And the one dog that I got bit, her name was Hula, and I don't blame her. She was actually licking my nose 5 minutes before it happened. I was trying to stuff her into a burlap bag so she could be airlifted out of the Quiet Lake checkpoint. And, trying to stuff a dog into a burlap bag is not fun for anybody, including the dog. So, yeah, she got upset, and I didn't blame her. I was wearing my big mitt, so it didn't matter. And then the other dog I got bit by was one of Connor's dog named Meredith. And when I said to Connor, I said, Meredith just bit me. And she says, oh, she's such a bitch. She bites me too. So it was all good. So no, the temperament of the dogs is amazing. They have an event the day before the start called Meet the Dogs in Shipyards Park in Whitehorse. And it's minus 28. I thought, who's going to come to this? Hundreds of people from Whitehorse bringing their kids all bundled up in snowsuits and everything to go meet the dogs. And each of the mushers had to have a minimum of 4 dogs there to interact with the crowd. And those dogs were fantastic. You know, they had kids going up to them and sticking their noses right in the dog's nose and hugging them and all. The dogs were great. Yeah, they are amazing dogs. There's just no two ways about it. They're not very big. Most of them weigh around 40, 45, 50 pounds.
I've done that in Northwest Territories through the Rotary Club.
Okay,
We've done some
on tiptoe
to
the
yeah. And that's one thing that amazed me was how small the dogs were.
They're small and there's not an ounce of fat on them.
No.
You know, they are lean, okay? And it's interesting, the dog food they eat, they call it, the dog food most of the mushers use is called Inukshuk 3232. And you think, oh, Inukshuk, where's that made? It's made in New Brunswick. But so it's Inukshuk 3232. The 3232 is because it's 32% protein and 32% fat, and has a caloric density of 718 calories per cup. Okay, standard dog food, like the dog food I feed my dog, is 25% protein, 16% fat, and has about 420 calories per cup. So very different. It's a performance dog food.
Burning it.
Yeah, well, but these dogs, it's estimated that some of these dogs can burn up to 10,000 calories a day between running and staying warm, because you have to burn calories to shiver, to stay, to maintain your body heat. That burns calories too.
So when the dogs are, when did you sleep?
Well, in between dogs arriving, I mean, each of the dogs, each of the sleds has a tracker, a GPS tracker on it.
Oh, okay.
So we know where they are.
Right.
And so, you know, we can look on the tracking map and say, okay, the next team is going to get here in a couple of hours. Let's go crash for a while. And so you would, you'd time, or sometimes, between the teams, you'd say, okay, we'll check in the next team. You guys go get some sleep. And then when the next team after that comes in, we'll look after it. You just coordinate it. But I mean, when we had the 7 teams arriving in 90 minutes in Ross River, I mean, we're all hands on deck, right? So you slept when you could. One night we basically just tipped the seats back on the truck and snoozed. I mean,
how exhausted were you when it was over? How many days?
It wasn't too bad, Kurt. I mean, I got up there on a Thursday. Friday was the vet checks. Saturday was the meet the dogs. The start was on Sunday. The race finished. The last team finished the race on the Thursday morning. You're tired, but you're out in the outside fresh air. It's cold, but it's. I mean, actually, funny story, Quiet Lake, I was there the first night that I was there. One of the judges was in the cookhouse with us. So there was the 2 vets, the judge, and then the volunteer from the Yukon Quest Committee. And Peter, the judge, who was a former musher, he says, "You could be a musher," to me. And I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much. What makes you say that?" And he says, "You can sleep through anything, dude." He says, "You were snoring all night long. My God." I mean, it was like a chainsaw in that corner. And I mean, you don't know when you're snoring. But apparently I slept the first night that we were up there. I slept quite soundly. And so that was good, because, the washroom facilities at the Quiet Lake Hilton were rustic.
Yeah.
When there's 4 inches of hoarfrost around the entire toilet seat, you got to sort of decide: are you going to use the squat and hover method, or are you just going to sit down and grin and bear it? And and like Peter, he also said, that the toilet seat amongst the mushers is known as the Arctic Circle. So it was a neat experience in terms of learning about that community, getting to know some of the mushers for sure. Like I say, there's a lot of parallels between the mushers and the chuck wagon drivers that I've gotten to know over the years. And the other thing that I really gained an appreciation for is just the absolute rugged beauty of the Yukon. You mentioned tourism. The tourism minister from the Yukon Territory, a fellow by the name of Mike Nixon, was a good friend of mine when I was in government. Canadians don't go to the north anywhere near as much as we should. And I mean, now that a lot of Canadians don't want to go south anymore, who can blame them, go north. And you know, when we lived in Germany 25 years ago, I had all kinds of Germans ask me, so how many times you've been to Northwest Territories or to Yukon? And I'd say, I've never been there. And they just look at you stunned, because a lot of European visitors to Canada have been to our north 3, 4, 5 times, because it is the beauty of the north is it's breathtaking. It really is. And seeing it in the winter months, it was stunning. We had an extra day at the end, and we jumped in the truck and we drove out to Kluane National Park. Just spectacular scenery. I mean, we have Jasper and Banff, and they're beautiful and everything. Kluane is also just gorgeous. You get to just the edge of the St. Elias Range, which is where Mount Logan is, the tallest peak in Canada. Oh, yeah. Yep. And I mean, the Elias Mountains, the St. Elias Range mountains are beautiful. They're really, really gorgeous. But just lots of other, it's a vast country. It's a vast, 45,000 people roughly and 220,000 caribou. So it's a neat place to go. I mean, it sounds like I'm now on the Yukon Tourism Board. I'm not, but I would love to go back to the Yukon or to Yellowknife or to Nunavut. I mean, I think those are parts of the world that we as Southerners, Southern Canadians, don't have any sort of an appreciation for how amazing it is.
Well, does this race, does it actually attract tourism?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Great that you mentioned that. There were Germans there for the race, and some of them were there for their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th Yukon quest. They came over every year. I talked to a few German. There was a German reporting team for one of the German media services. I'm not sure if it was print or television or online or what it was, but there was a German media team reporting on the race. But also enthusiasts, dog sled enthusiasts, go to the Yukon Quest and go and watch the mushers and follow the mushers from place to place. I couldn't believe some of the crowds that came out, like Teslin start date.
It's minus 35.
Minus 35 in Teslin.
We cancel everything.
Well, no, for them it's sort of, oh gee, what a nice day. There was, and I got to say, we had sunny skies and no wind. I mean, wind would have changed everything, but we had no wind. It's minus 35, but it's pleasant. We probably had 250, 300 people at the start line at Teslin. And Teslin as a community is tiny. I don't know if there's even 350 people that live in Teslin. But a good chunk of the local community came out. People drove out from Whitehorse. People came from other communities. And I mean, the start of a dog sled race is a pretty cool thing. And actually, if I go back next year, and I hope to, one of the things they've talked about is doing, instead of like this year where they started them at 3-minute intervals, doing a mass start, which would be so cool. Like we had 10 sleds in the long race, and we had 7 in the shorter race, so 17 all told. But if you had 10 sleds coming out from underneath the Teslin Bridge, going out onto Teslin Lake all at the same time, I mean, how cool would that be? It would create some challenges at the first checkpoint, but by then the teams have kind of spread out a little bit, and it'll all be good. But
dogs are like horses; they are competitive with each other.
Oh, you bet. Yeah. Absolutely. And actually, people say, well, why, the dogs that had to drop out, why? Were they getting hurt? The biggest reason we had for dogs to be dropped was mostly young, inexperienced dogs towards the end of the race because they'd gone out too hard initially. They saw their more experienced buddies and whatnot in the other teams go out hard, and they wanted to keep up. And, for the first couple 100 miles, they did pretty well. And then that last 100 miles, it was just, oh, really? Like I was at the Quiet Lake checkpoint, which was the last checkpoint coming back. Like it was a sort of out and back race. So I was at Quiet Lake, and we dropped, I think there were 6 dogs that we looked after that were dropped from teams. And 4 of them were because they were just fatigued. There's nothing really wrong with them. They just needed a rest. And, the mushers, to their credit, they said, he's just not having fun anymore. I need to drop this dog. He's just not having fun. Their concern for the welfare of the dogs is nothing short of amazing. And I mean, one of the dogs that was dropped was one of the older dogs that I'd actually seen the dog in the pre-race check. It was an 11-year-old dog, a veteran, but that dog did have some soreness in his shoulder, which is a common sled dog injury. And the musher it was the gal who ended up winning the race, Michelle. She said, he's just not, it's Whalen, and he's just not pulling, his full potential. I said, he could keep going, but I just don't want to push him. He's 11, and I'll be fine with the rest of the dogs. It was the only dog she dropped. She came across the line with 11 dogs.
I want to ask you how you diagnose that.
Well,
I know it might be technical.
No, as in a lot of things in veterinary practice, I mean, your patient can't talk. And through experience, though, where you have to squeeze or push or prod or palpate in order to elicit some sort of response. And so a lot of what we do in musculoskeletal conditions is we will use different kinds of manipulations of the limb that we know put stress specifically on a specific tendon or muscle group or a ligament or that sort of thing. And we watch the dog very carefully.
We all seen dogs favor their...
Sure.
Oh, he looks like he's hurt his paw.
And yeah, exactly. And we would get that at the clinic all the time. But he's limping. He's limping. He's limping on his left front. And, my approach was always start at the paw and work your way up. And what you're really looking for is can you elicit any painful response from the dog? And in sled dog racing, the most common injury in sled dog racing, orthopedic injury in sled dog racing, involves the forelimbs, and it's biceps tendonitis. It's an inflammation of the biceps tendon. And you can diagnose that when you run your fingers along the biceps tendon, you squeeze it if it feels swollen or hot or that sort of thing. And those are dogs that we, like I say, then they're dropped, they're scratched, and every musher has a handler, and the handler then looks after the dog from there on. But in the case of Quiet Lake, there were no handlers at Quiet Lake, so if the dogs were dropped, they became our responsibility, and the veterinarian. So really? Dr. Bart and I were in Quiet Lake, and we set up our own little infirmary there in behind the Quiet Lake Hilton. We bedded those dogs down. They were like in 3.5 feet of straw, and we had blankets for them, and we made sure it was on the sunny side, so when the sun finally came around to our side of the building, these dogs were laying in the sun. And if I could read dogs' minds, I'm sure a couple of those dogs said, I don't know why I didn't start limping a couple 100 miles ago, because this is pretty nice. And then to boot, they got a flight out of there, right? Because the only way to get the dogs out was to fly them out, so that's when we're stuffing these dogs into burlap bags.
Right.
And out they go. They got flown up before we did, which is good. This is fine. I didn't, we wanted them back to their handlers and their mushers as quickly as possible.
How loud was it? Being up in the Northwest Territories, it was loud. Like the dogs are loud.
Oh,
loud?
At the start, Kurt, it's a cacophony. I mean, these dogs are barking, and even at the checkpoints, when the musher stops the dogs immediately start barking. They want to go, right? Yeah. But the one checkpoint we were at, Quiet Lake is very well named. It was quiet.
So when the dogs come in, they're exhausted.
If it's clear to the dogs that this is a rest stop, and so the booties come off.
This is
the booties that they put on. All the dogs run with booties on. Now the booties fall off pretty easily, so the mushers are required to have 3 full sets of booties for all the dogs on the team. 1 on the dogs and then 2 spares for each dog.
So if one falls off, they can stop the race?
No, they don't stop the race, but the next checkpoint they'll put it.
Okay.
And at the rest stops, they pull all the booties off. So the musher will just go and zip, 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 go along, and then they put straw down, and these dogs, they're curled up and sleeping within 10 minutes of arrival. And again, amazing, minus 35 out. I took some pictures of these dogs after they'd been sleeping. They're covered in frost, because the water vapor from the exhaled air from their lungs, all around their face, but
same as humans,
same as us,
these guys with beards.
Same as us. Absolutely. Well, I actually had a bit of a beard going when I was up there, and I got pretty frosty a few times too, and. but it was, like I say, it was a neat experience. I'm very grateful to Dr. Bart for having invited me, and he's indicated to me that if I want to come again next year, I'm more than welcome. So I guess I did okay. But you know, I have a lot of appreciation for the participants, for the volunteers, and you know, like any sporting event, there's an absolute army of volunteers that have to help out, and the judges, and then just the people of the Yukon. That this is a big deal for them, and they're very, very proud of this race. And it's not quite this sort of scale that it once was. I mean, we saw some of the old T-shirts that said 1,000-mile international dog sled race. Well, it isn't that anymore, and it's not likely to become that again. Ironically, the Alaska side of things, they've got a race now called Yukon Quest Alaska, which to me is a little odd, and they're running it mostly on the part of the trail that used to be the Alaska side of things, like from Fairbanks and that sort of thing. I don't know if it'll ever go back to Fairbanks. I'm not involved with those decisions, so it doesn't really matter. But I know that one of the things they'd really like to do is get back up to Dawson, because Dawson's, you know, the other sort of major sort of center and very historic, right? And you know, the challenge is though is you have to find a route that's safe for the dogs, and then you have to deal with, you know, okay, whose land are you going across? And a lot of it is land of Indigenous peoples. It's their traditional lands. And you have to make sure you have the cooperation of the Indigenous peoples, and that's just showing respect. But based on the response that we received from both the Tlingit Tribal Council and also the Ross River Dene Nation, they were fabulous hosts. They were really, really good. And they were really happy that the race was coming to their communities. Right. So hopefully that word will spread to some of the other you know, Indigenous communities that we'll need to, you know, have some conversations with about having the race go, you know, through their areas. But it was like I say, it was a neat experience, and enjoyed being in the Yukon, so that was good.
Did you, because there's so many dogs around, I don't know if you would, but did you see any wildlife up there?
You know, it's interesting you asked that question, because I was kind of looking forward to that. Some of my colleagues, the other members of the veterinary team, saw some caribou. One of them, there was some caribou crossing the road in front of them. With the amount of driving we did, I thought for sure we'd see some. We didn't see much. There's apparently, I don't know how many species, 200 species of birds that call the Yukon home. Well, the only ones we saw were the provincial bird, the raven. And they were everywhere. I mean, you stopped at the parking lot at Save on Foods, and immediately there'd be 20 ravens around your vehicle. I mean, they were everywhere. So no, unfortunately, we didn't see a lot in the way of wildlife. But the other thing people ask me is, oh, the Northern Lights must have just been amazing. I saw more Northern Lights driving home to Lloydminster the night I got home than the entire time I was in the Yukon. The solar activity was not favorable while we were up there. And, you know, I kind of felt sorry, because every night at 10 o'clock, 2 buses would pull up to the front of the hotel we were staying in Whitehorse. And people would troop out wearing these parkas that they'd been given by the tour operators to go out and see the Northern Lights. And I'm sitting in the bar watching this, and I'm going, guys, you might as well just come here and have a beer. Yeah. Because you're not going to see any Northern Lights tonight. I'm sorry, they're not out there. We did see stars, like, you know, it's like a dark sky preserve. And I mean, I took a picture of the Big Dipper that, you know, is just so clear and beautiful. But no, we didn't see any Northern Lights, which was disappointing. But certainly during the Iditarod, apparently they were spectacular. The mushers on the Iditarod were saying that they had a really good display of Northern Lights. So,
thank you, Richard. I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's all good. Kurt, it was, like I say, it was a great experience. I hope to be able to do it again. We'll see how that all goes. And, you know, I commend, like I said, the mushers, the volunteers, and the organizers, who I thought did a magnificent job, and the people of the Yukon that hosted us. Very gracious hosts, and it was a neat experience.
Awesome. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We're actually going to be at Border City Furniture tomorrow. We're launching a brand new show, which we hope to get Richard on at some point as well. It's called the Border City Prospectives. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit down with some members of our community, talk about all the good things that Lloydminster has to offer, what they love about the city, what they're looking forward to, any events coming up and things like that, what brought them to our community, and what keeps them here. So that comes your way
Cool.
tomorrow morning. Our guests are going to be David Lopez,
Oh, good.
Stephanie Monroe, and Taylor Weaver.
Oh, excellent.
So we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. We'll be at Border City Furniture.